Liquorland are proud partners of the PiesNation podcast. Footy's back and Liquorland have all your drinks for when the siren calls once again. Liquorland on board, Jackie boy. It's
Yeah,
very exciting.
very exciting for season 2023, Nico. Great to have Liquorland on board.
Pop into your local Liquorland today or shop online for all your favourites. Liquorland, from the land you love. Please drink responsibly. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the PiesNation podcast, where the pies are hot and the drinks are cold. I'm Nicholas Sacco, your host for this week's episode. We are episode 3 of season 5, or episode 116 if you're counting from the beginning. And oh boy, have we started the season on the right foot. An awesome last quarter and a half has seen us take care of the reigning premiers by 22 points at the MCG, and a win that could potentially set ourselves up for season 2023 in more good ways than one. Today, we chat through all the highs and lows of what took place on Friday night, get our first votes for this year's PiesNation Fan Award, get your comments as always on AskPiesNation, and our favourite segment is back for the year. We speak to our first winner of the Guess the Crowd competition. I've got two very happy men sitting across me today, Marcus Callahan, Jack Dugan. Boys, huge start to our season a few days back, and I think it's fair to say that despite the disappointments of the first half, if we see more performances like we did in that second half, we could be in for a very strong campaign, Marcus.
Boys, what a way to start the season. What a defiant win from the Pies. It is the stuff of legends, that game. Let's make no mistake about it. What we did on the weekend was show the competition that the hunted are the hunters and vice versa, because we've only been within a kick or two against this side. So who knows who the best side in the competition is right now, and we've thrown that on its head once more with just the most incredible premiership brand of footy, Jack. It was something to savour, and I think we'll be talking about this win for a very long time.
Yeah, it was unbelievable in many ways, Marcus, to knock off the reigning premier round one, first game of the season. As you mentioned, it is early, so the lid is still firmly on top. But just the way we went about it, from Nick, you mentioned it, we sort of struggled a little bit in that first half, shot ourselves in the foot with our ball use, especially going inside 50, and no doubt we'll cover that across the episode. But what a great response after half-time. That last quarter is something I'll remember for a long, long time. So, yeah, what a memorable game.
8 goals in succession in that last quarter and a half. Just superb football from the Pies. And really, when we were at half-time, we didn't know if we were going to expect this from Collingwood, and we were just able to turn the tables pretty quickly, which we'll get into why that was the case. But speaking of first time back for the year, another great segment of ours, the pie that caught your eye, is back for our first game of the year. Jack, you can kick us off with who it was from your end.
Well, I feel like this man often gets overlooked. Probably fair enough considering he's playing a similar position to one Nick Dacos, but it's John Noble this week is the pie that caught my eye. The reason why he caught my eye is because, as well as having 29 disposals, 23 of which were kicks, going at a pretty impressive efficiency rate of 83%, he had a few blues early on in the piece. The first Geelong goal, first goal of the game, was a fairly errant kick that went straight to Zach Tui, and none were more frustrated than myself. So many more players could probably be convinced for dropping their head or letting that one moment sort of define the rest of their game. But John just kept continually fronting up for us time and time again. And I'm not sure for absolute certainty, but I think that might be one of his career high disposal games as well. So just really, really impressed with the way John went about it, just and how he dealt with those early blues. I think it's a testament to himself and also the type of attitude Craig McRae and the coaching staff are continuing to install in this team, obviously building upon last year. So John Noble was the pie that caught my eye. Marcus.
Thank you, Jack. I've gone with Jordan De Goey. He's an obvious candidate, and the reason I wanted to shine a light on Geordie this week is we've been calling on this podcast, and many others have as well, for Jordan De Goey to step up big in a game just like this, grab it by the scruff and really take over. 3 goals in the second half on the weekend, and it was one of those moments when he kicked that sealer. I mean, the game was done, but the icing on the cake.
Yep.
That was such a telling moment for me, because Jordan De Goey, Nico, of a few seasons ago, just goes back and with a set shot like that, maybe he just misses, maybe his body language
Not
isn't
confident.
great. going into the kick, or maybe his head is elsewhere, he seized the moment on the weekend, and he showed us why he will finish top 5 in the Brownlow this year. No, I kid. But was it as complete a performance as you've seen from De Goey, Nico?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, we can delve into his game in big detail because he really did stand out. 25 touches, 8 marks, 3 goals, 11 score involvements, which was a game high, 418 metres gained, 6 inside 50s. And we talk about setting the season up from a whole team point of view. This game could set the season up for Jordan De Goey. We've been crying out, as you said, for someone to have that consistency, particularly in a position that Jordan plays, going through the middle and that half forward area. He has not had a better opportunity, I think, to announce himself as one of the more dominant forward mids in the competition. And I think that game has just sort of let everyone know that, hey, I'm here to play this year, and no better time to do it against the reigning premiers.
For sure. It was a stamp on the competition, and you're absolutely right. First game of the year, Jack, we've got to just temper how excited we
Yes.
are. But when you lose by this side by less than a kick in a final last year, and you basically 2 goals, I think, 13 points was the margin earlier in last year's campaign. So you can't help but not be excited. The Moz would be off the back for the players, Geelong being a bogey side. So I thought De Goey was just instrumental, but it was just as much the stuff he was doing off the ball as well. He was hot at the contest. He was running both ways, and he looked fit enough to run out the 4 quarters, which is super exciting. So enough about Mr. De Goey, though. Nico, pilot caught your eye.
It's a trait, though, that you criticised quite a few times about Jordan De Goey, the fact that he wouldn't be running back, playing a defensive role. So to see him do that for 4 quarters was just superb. By the way, don't read the first half of our WhatsApp group chat because I reckon we were definitely not talking about how good we were at that point. But anyway, we'll keep going. Pie that caught my eye this week was Bobby Hill, and I was already excited to see him come into the club, and he delivered in spades. This man is ready for the big stage, I think. Guys, 3 goals, 7 marks, 10 tackles, 318 metres gained, 5 inside 50s. The man was everywhere, and he really did relish being on that MCG stage with the big bright lights, like I mentioned last week, and he was just electric. The speed he's got, the way that he complements that game plan that we're trying to implement, it's just perfect. And he's a big-time player. You can see that he's been begging for it. Wasn't getting that at GWS. The fact that they had about 11 people at their game on the weekend suggests that Collingwood is where he's meant to be, and he really did deliver, I feel, on that stage. So just glad to see Bobby playing that light. I said he would kick 25 goals plus this year. He's already got 3 on the board, so the way he's going, hopefully it means that he will continue to find a way to be so influential in that forward 50. And you know what? That Anzac Day medal that you slightly mentioned last week, Marcus, I know we're still a few weeks away from that game, but could be a potential to take that next step and really announce himself on the big stage.
He was electric. He brings so much X factor and in a totally different way to Jack Ginnivan. But come round 3, have we got a selection headache on our hands, Jack?
I think absolutely we do. I was thinking that all game, and certainly post-game when we saw Jack waiting for the players at the end of the race, I actually thought to myself, he might struggle to get back in this side. Bobby Hill, we all knew he was going to bring a certain level of creativity to our forward line, but what I was most impressed being there on Friday night was the class. The class in his skill, the
field
class
kicking
off the ball was just unbelievable. That classy finish to snap that goal at a really crucial time, to then go back and take the set shot from this kick from Pendles, and then, after that was the kick from Pendles where he was able to run into an open goal, and he also took mark of the century just quietly as well. So
and just while we keep going, what about the kick to Brody Myercheck on the run? Like, he's hit this absolute dart of a ball, went about 40 metres and just hit checkers about 15 metres out. So his skills are impeccable.
Well, we mentioned last week that he could be playing some midfield time now that he's arrived at Collingwood. So if he's kicking the ball inside 50 with that penetration, then, wow, you just have to consider putting him in the middle at times. But you're right, he was superb in every facet of the word, really, and just fantastic to see him continue to take a step. It was one of the points I did make in regards to Jack Ginnivan and whether it was too harsh or too early to start talking about his selection in the side. He's still got 1 more week of suspension to carry in the Port game this week. But yeah, I think, another big performance from the Pies against the Power, which we'll of course talk about later on in the week. And yeah, there's some suggestion that maybe he might not be walking in as quickly as we'd like. So we'll see how we go for Jack's case. One man I'm sure that did catch everybody's eyes that we didn't really speak about because we wanted to, give all the players some love is the Dacos boys, and especially Nick. Didn't he flourish again? We talked about the fact that he might have to wear some tags this year. Geelong didn't really want to bother him in that department, and look what he was able to do. An outstanding display, 35 touches at 91% efficiency. And before everyone comes up and says, hey, he just gets the easy handballs, 21 kicks in those 35 touches. So definitely putting us on a show. 579 metres gained, 7 marks, 5 intercept possessions. I could keep going on, but it shows why he needs a tag, clearly. Not that we want him to get one.
Oh, it was unbelievable. And just to go into his game alongside brother Josh as well, I just found that the way those two assemble each other on the half back line gives us so much confidence with the foot skills coming out of defence. Whether the opposition's kicked it behind and we're just looking for them, or Johnny Noble to get the ball around that sort of D50 region, you have so much confidence with them going inside. And how many times did we expose Geelong in the second half when guys like Nick Dacos, Josh Dacos, Scott Pendlebury were bringing the ball back over the fat side so that we could score more freely. So I thought that was telling, and he's the best quarterback in the comp as far as I'm concerned. Nick Dacos. How did you see his game though, Jack?
Yeah, just like to echo those words, gents. He's just picking up from where he left off last year. Sorry, he goes at 91% efficiency, but you really can tell when he kicks the ball that they are damaging disposals and touches. He looks inboard very frequently, doesn't really like going down the line, and if he does go down the line, it's usually lace out to a big bloke that not even I could drop it. So unbelievable. On Josh Dacos, how good was his effort in that Geelong rebound from back 50 to forward 50, where they were essentially just about to walk into an open goal, and he worked his absolute butt off. Not only got to the contest, was able to effect a spoil and get a neutral out of bounds. I thought that was one of the highlights of the game for mine, and really came at a pivotal point.
It was the perfect spoil, really, in the end, wasn't it? So you were there, of course, on Friday night. There were a few different moments throughout the game that I want to mention, but that Josh Dacos one, as an example, the crowd were on their feet. You could see it on the TV. As that spoil happened, it goes out of bounds. Everyone has applauded him for a good 10, 20 seconds, just highlighting the importance of his work, and not just him, but everybody in that best 22 that was shown on Friday night. Their ability to go back and apply those defensive traits as well. It's just unreal. I could only imagine what the atmosphere was like.
Yeah, the atmosphere on Friday night was electric. Probably exemplified by that Ollie Henry tackle at the top of the goal square. The Josh Dacos moment, not
All right,
far
let's get
behind
to
it.
Let's get to it, because before you go on, Jack, I was at a wedding. I didn't go on Friday night, which for those that watched the Thursday live, you could just see the disdain on my face when it just sunk that I was going to be at a wedding and not at round one. But we were sitting on the long table at the wedding, got the phone on the water jug on top of, I think it was a couple of different plates, I'm not sure, but it got a nice elevated view. We're all watching it, just sitting back, enjoying our main meal. All of a sudden, Ollie Henry's in the goal square on his own. He's taking all the time in the world, and Moore just comes from nowhere and crunches him. And you should have heard our whole table go ballistic. It was like the bride had just run away, or there was something going on, because that had to be the way. I don't even know how to describe it, but that really did set the tone, not just for the match, but it could potentially set the tone for Darcy Moore's captaincy, for the season. Just everything about it was perfect, and the run just went on from there. So I want to hear your thoughts on that Ollie Henry tackle, because Darcy Moore, coming from nowhere, unreal stuff.
I've been very fortunate in my time, Nico, to see that Ponsford stand rise as one, and with absolute elation and excitement. And by far and away, that is the number one moment I've ever seen. From sitting away from it and watching it, it was just unbelievable. I felt like every single person that was at that end of the ground stood up and applauded, and they were all wearing black and white, and the noise that came from it was just unbelievable. It wasn't even a goal it was a huge tackle, but it wasn't even a goal, and it was just, it was amazing. I'm struggling to put into words because how just it giving me goosebumps just thinking about it, because it came at such a time, as did the Dacos spoil, where you felt as though Geelong were taking control of the game. You felt as though that was an easy at the back goal that could have just started a little run that might have buried us a little bit further down. And Darcy and Josh just didn't allow those moments to happen by just sheer will of not giving up. And it's as a product of the what am I trying to say here? The Craig McRae and the coaching staff. They're putting this attitude into the boys about
Belief.
just never giving up and always having belief. So
What did you think of that moment, Marcus?
Yeah, watching from home, unfortunately not at the game, but it was like time slowed down. And Ollie Henry, he's not the fastest player around the field. He likes to take his time. He always kind of bobs on his set shots. So, oh, mate, it was just, it was everything. You couldn't script it, really, in terms of it happening at the Ponsford stand. And we, you know how much the cheer squad has loved Darcy Moore's engagement over the last couple of years in terms of his post-match celebrations. And so everyone loves to see the number 30 go well at that end of the ground, as we all do. But it was just, yeah, it was something. I think they said on the commentary, Nick Rewalt probably hoping he wasn't watching that one, might be feeling a little bit hurt. But it's a bit like Jordan De Goey's game. It's symbolic of what could be this year. And we spoke to how we wanted to see, or I did last week on the pod, about Darcy Moore bringing a certain level of aggression with his game, and getting stuck into Ollie Henry straight after in a channeled way was just brilliant to see. He didn't give away the free kick, got the ball back, and kick-started just an incredible rest of the game.
I'm just glad we won, because 10 seconds later he's turned the ball over and Gary Rollins taken a mark on deep inside 50 to extend the margin for the Cats. But fortunately, we were able to turn the ship around. But yeah, still an unbelievable moment that we'll be replaying for quite a long time. A couple of plays I do want to mention from Friday night's game that we haven't yet. Tom Mitchell is one. Now, there was a lot of intrigue about what he was going to bring to that midfield, and he's someone I believe that also delivered really. 21 disposals at 81% efficiency, but 2 goals and 10 clearances. This is exactly what we brought Tom Mitchell into this side for. The clearances were such a worry for this football club, even when we were going so well last year. You bring him in, and all of a sudden, things start to change, and they change in a great way. We won the clearances 43-35, stoppage clearances 29-18, and just that ability to read the ruck taps, give clean hands out to those other midfielders, it's just superb. And if he can continue to play this way, the links he's going to have with these midfielders are going to be something really hard to stop from other teams.
No doubt about it. And we called just how good his first touch is, and the fact that even if he doesn't distribute it, he at least makes sure the opposition aren't going the other way. And he just is so clean around the contest as well. His hand-eye coordination and his foot skills. It was a bit like having another Taylor Adams on the park. That's how it felt watching from home. Jacko, did you see his game?
Yeah, absolutely. I thought he was probably the most important player on the ground, especially in the engine room there, Nico. I can't remember the last time we said Collingwood has won the clearances by sort of 5 or more. So he was pivotal in that. On Tom Mitchell, I expected him to play a subtle role this year, that slight link up, the handball out to the blokes running past, but he really took Friday night by the scruff of the neck, and he looked as good as I've ever seen Tom Mitchell look. He wasn't 50 disposal Tom Mitchell, but he was really effective Tom Mitchell, and the fact he was able to get on to 2 goals as well is just huge.
Similar to Bobby Hill, someone that's just come into the club, played at Hawthorn in front of about 40 people, comes to Collingwood at the MCG, absolutely loves it. I think he's even been quoted as saying that it felt just surreal being in front of so many people at a game like that, and it was only round 1. Well, Tom, you've got a lot more to come. Don't worry, some big milestone games coming up.
No doubt about it. And another thing I'd like to talk about here is just the fact there's so many stories in this game. Each one of our new recruits who was playing kicked a goal.
They did.
And in the third term, I'm not sure if you saw, but they actually kicked it to each other. I think it was something like Hill to McStay to Mitchell in the middle, and then we went on for another attack. So it's just all these little things that you feel like a really solid body of work last season, and then how fit did we look as well? I think the
big difference.
High performance staff were commended for the efforts they'd done by flying the post-match presser, and we looked like we could go for a 5th quarter, Jack.
Well, that was the feeling at the ground as well, Marcus. I mean, before half-time, the chat around the bays in the MCC was that perhaps why can't we just sustain this for a whole quarter of footy? Because we were kicking a lot of our goals in the red time of quarters. And hindsight being a wonderful thing, it just sort of goes and points at the fact that how fit we actually are, that we're able to run out each quarter to its full extent and take full advantage of the other side. I'm not calling Geelong unfit by any stretch, but take full advantage of the other side not being as fit as us. And that happened right throughout the game. There was an opportunity in the last quarter for us to run away with it, and we didn't just fall in either. We used our fitness to our advantage and, took it away from the Cats. Unbelievable.
What a contrast against this opposition 12 months ago when we couldn't run the game out against the Cats and blew that big lead that we had and eventually lost the game. So, also, you talked about goal kickers last week, Marcus. 10 individual goal kickers for our 19 majors. Proof's in the pudding, really. Having the ability to have multiple goal kickers around the park makes a massive difference towards the end result.
And with a forward line where the twin towers weren't really connecting, we said it's going to take time for them to work out the leading patterns and start to establish an understanding between them so that they can get on the board in bigger bags. But don't mind it. 19 goals in a game of footy is 19 goals. You don't really care where they come from as long as the system is clicking. So I thought Dan McStay put his hand up, probably went in and out of the game a bit more than Checkers. Checkers was good on being his usual workhorse self, but it's going to take a bit of time, and that's all right when you've got your midfield also contributing.
Yeah, tough one for Dan McStay to get into, I thought. First half, we shot ourselves in the foot quite a bit with our last 2 or 3 touches going inside 50, and as a full forward, that's never easy to try and figure out a leading pattern for that. So that'll be a really good one to watch over the next sort of 3 to 4 weeks if we can get that right for longer, where Dan McStay feels comfortable.
Last positive in my notes was Reef McInnes' sub appearance when he did come on for Jeremy Howe, which we'll speak about in a few moments' time, but was pretty handy. Was able to get onto the scoreboard as well, and he's proving himself to be someone we can rely on inside 50. What do you think about his game?
McCreary, I think the one thing that he needs to do this year to take that next step is not just be renowned for a tackling pressure player. Like when he gets his hands on the footy, he's very clean disposal and he's very good by foot. So I'm just hoping that he can do more of that to show us that he's not just there for defensive pressure, but he's actually got other X factor in it, that sort of thing.
What about Reef McInnes, the guy I actually asked about instead of Bo McCreary? But that's okay.
We're going well here today.
Shout out to Bo.
Bo McCreary was very good.
Thought you give me a funny look.
Reef, though, Nico, to answer your question. Reef was amazing when he came on. Obviously not a like-for-like sub with Jeremy Howe, and we'll probably go into that about how our backline coped without him. But Reef was huge. There was massive talks about him from the boys over various social media platforms and indeed the media that Reef had a huge off-season and he really worked on himself to improve, and that came to fruition on Friday night. He got his opportunity getting subbed on, and every time the ball went his way, I think he only had about 4 or 5 touches, but ended with the 2 goals or the 3. 2 goals, 3 scoring shots, and definitely had an impact for sure. So well done, Reef. Potentially comes into the side this week. I'm not sure whether he maybe has to stay as the sub, but we'll see how that plays out.
Well done, Bo.
Shout out, Bo.
Shout out to Bo, absolutely. Let's get on the pretty much main sour topic of Friday night, Jeremy Howe going down. We all pretty much winced, whether you're at the ground or watching on TV, when his arm went down and it was out, and it was, everyone huddling him. Yeah, it was a pretty tough sight to see, particularly for Jeremy Howe, someone we had pumped up a week ago saying he's just signed another contract. We're going to have him around. He's going to be so imperative to that back six. And fortunately, it's not going to be a season-long injury at this point in time, which is, I guess, the good news you can take out of that. However, he will be out for at least a significant part of time, which is the concern that McRae and his coaching staff are going to have to try and solve. The obvious answer is Billy Frampton coming into his position. However, the two-part question. The first one, how does that change our defensive structure, having now Frampton and Moore in, but without Jeremy Howe? And also, are there other defenders in the VFL waiting in the wings that could use this as an opportunity to step up? I talk of Trey Rusco. I talk of Will Kelly. There might be a couple of others that I've forgotten to mention there. But yeah, what are your opinions on those two questions?
I first of all just hope his surgery went well. And my understanding is yesterday he was under the knife to, I think, repair his it was forearm where the break actually was. 4 in total, was it? Gee whiz, that's, crazy stuff, and never wish that upon a player. So for Howie, It could be a month, it could be 3. They're not really sure at this moment, as I understand. But obviously, Frampton gets the opportunity, in my mind, to come into the side. And this might be an unpopular opinion. You never wish for an injury upon a player, but yes, it is only first game of the year, and we need to cool the jets with how good that win was in terms of we need to get to round 6. And we said 3-3 was a pass, 4-2 would be lovely. Frampton coming into the side earlier in the year, in my mind, is a good thing. I think that the more time he gets to establish himself in the back line, the more dependent he can become when we do make finals, touch wood. So I'm not sure what this means for like what our best back six looks like at the end of the year, Nico, in terms of who we select. But I think Frampton needs opportunity, and with one guy going down, that creates that opportunity for Billy. As for some of those VFL defenders, not entirely sure who's a like for like, but it's probably a bigger guy such as Will Kelly. Jack, was there anyone else that came to mind for yourself?
Yeah, Will Kelly was the direction I was leaning towards also, Nico, in terms of a like for like in size comparison. All the commentary around this week is that Frampton will get his go this week, but should that not work out, probably Will Kelly's next in line. Otherwise, you're sort of looking at Trey Rusco, and then you fall into the same territory as we did last year with Murphy playing undersized on bigger forwards. So, but on the Jeremy Howe injury, it's a really horrible thing. One at the ground, you're sick to your stomach. I didn't even see the replay, and it was just seeing him fly. I think Tom Hawkins was standing near the contest when it happens, and he was at least 2 Tom Hawkins in the air. So it was just a massive impact for Jeremy. So all the best for him and his recovery. What I was super impressed with, though, was especially after that incident, was Moore and Murphy's ability to defend the ground as good as they did. Quite often you see moments in games where defenders will leave their man to affect a contest, and that could be the pivotal changing point. That happened about 4 or 5 times in that last quarter, where both Murphy and Moore left their men in acts of courage when Geelong were, if that hadn't worked out, it's easy goal out the back, no doubt about it. So those two should be absolutely commended for the way they went about that last quarter.
And can we just speak to that a bit more? Because I was critical of the defence's marking in the first half. I thought we were getting exposed a little bit too easily when the turnover came, and there was just moments where guys were caught out of position, and I think Ollie Henry might have been the recipient of a one over the top, and that was just happening a little bit too much. So towards the end of the game, tired legs, obviously, defenders have to make more of those split-second decisions. But did we feel like we just harnessed Jeremy Howe's spirit not being on the ground? Like, it really felt as if guys like Nathan Murphy and Darcy Moore took that to heart, like they were distressed on the field, and then they were able to convert that energy into some really awesome individual efforts later in the game, which is not easy to do when the game's on the line, Nick.
Yeah, spot on. And when you have a moment like that in a game, it goes one or two ways. And the way that our defenders took it is exactly what you boys have mentioned. They wanted to take that next step in their own game at that moment. And we saw times where they were leaving their own men to try and spoil the ball. And you make some excellent points, Jack, because yes, they were happening at pivotal moments of the game, but they were also happening with minutes to go in the game when you could say that it was sewn up. They were still continuing that system, their ability to try and every single 50-50 contest go Collingwood's way. If they have to go up an extra man, they might not need to. The game might already be done and dusted, but their ability to continue to find ways to put Collingwood in positions to go forward was just superb. And another unsung reason as to why Darcy Moore seems to be the perfect choice as skipper. Those are the little traits that maybe not everybody picks up. They're the instructions he's probably giving to his defenders to say, hey, let's continue on, as Jeremy Howe would be standing right there. There's still going to be 6 people in that back 6, and everyone's got a role to play. So I agree with both of you there. It was fantastic to see, considering the circumstance of that back 6, and just, yeah, goes to show how important Darcy Moore is in that back line. Let's get to our votes for the first time this season, boys. I think we were saying off air as well, there were probably 2 guys that are well entrenched in those top 2, but maybe that one voter is going to be a difficult one to pick. So intrigued to hear what your thoughts are. We'll start with you, Jack.
So I've gone with Jordan De Goey, 3 votes. Nico, so I
No. This is
I've
probably
given him
the
the 3
probably the
first.
1 week to start with
Okay.
3, considering the 1 vote's the most intrigue.
What was
So-
wrong with that?
So isn't the Brownlow? It's 1, 2, 3. I always go with 3, 2, 1.
No, I was
for
doing
it,
it the
mate.
wrong way for about
Marcus
2
does it all the
seasons.
time. It doesn't matter.
I
Go
reckon
on.
Bo McCreary's Reef McInnes. So
So
go
as,
for your life.
as we spoke about before, Geordie, one of the most influential games we've seen for him from a while. There was an aura of maturity about him on Friday night, I thought, especially that last set shot he took. He understood the scenario of the game, realised that this was probably the time for him to just take his full 30 seconds. Everyone can have a breather. And what was the plus was he was able to step back and just absolutely nail it. So a 3-vote game for Jordan De Goey. 2 I've given to his lordship God. Sorry, Nick Dacos. Phenomenal game again. We don't need to speak about it anymore. Just remarkable how he continues to progress. And the 1 vote, I was going to give it to John Noble, but I probably should have in the end, but I've given it to Bo McCreary. I thought I was really impressed with Bo's usually that player, as Marcus so happily touched on before when
Obviously.
we were talking about Reece McInnes. Bo's that sort of player, 8 to 12 possession player a game, known for his pressure, and if he can get on the end of a few goals, it's a bonus. He was still able to bring all his usual attributes to the game whilst also getting a lot of ball, and I thought he was pretty effective with his disposal as well. So, and both of his goals came at really pivotal times in the game. So they were my 3-2-1, Marcus.
Also going in the 3-2-1, I'll go JDG best on, and Dacos 2 votes for all the reasons you've just outlined. Jacko, and then 1 vote went to the skipper, ex-skipper, I should say.
Hard to say now, isn't
I
it?
know. Scotty Pendlebury, I think I've given him votes that many times on this podcast just because he continues to surprise. He's looking a little bit slow. He was slow at the best of times, but I'm not going to knock him for that when he's able to do these, like that behind handball in the first
Multiple
quarter
times
to
he's
Will
did it,
Hoskin
yeah.
Elliott. Yeah, I think he did it again later in the match as well. It's just like, and then the kick to Bobby Hill, like he knows exactly where he is and just snaps it 40 metres to a guy, like not lights out, but you know what I'm trying to say. Hardly had to move. It was just ridiculous. And then exposing the opposition later in the game with these awesome kicks through the middle and inside 50. He continues to surprise guys, and it's just, yeah, Nico.
You talk about ridiculous. Imagine having a 27 disposal, 8 tackle, which is a game high, 9 score involvement, 369 metre gained game, and not being mentioned for the first 25 minutes of the pod. That's how special this player is.
Bucks
really.
was saying today on SEN, is he underrated?
Yeah,
You
he
know?
did ask that question, which
And with his CV, it's kind of like, excuse me, but at 34, you're not meant to be doing these things,
No.
Nick. You're just not.
not at all. But same sentiments as you guys. Best on ground, Jordan De Goey by far, I think. Nick Dacos, I guess not too far behind, but De Goey's influence on the match was really pivotal to us getting the 4 points. I gave Tom Mitchell 1 vote because we spoke a little bit about it on the Thursday live when selection came out, about how important that midfield battle was going to be, and we were all wondering how Tom Mitchell was going to impact the middle against a pretty strong Geelong midfield, I must say. But the fact that he was able to have such a strong influence, we've rattled through his stats already before, but the link up he's had with Jordan De Goey, Taylor Adams, all our midfielders really, and to have a game high 10 clearances, which proved to be the difference in the clearances, which proved to be the difference in the game, says all you need to know. So I think he definitely deserved 1 vote. The fans were very similar, particularly with Jordan De Goey. He is the best on ground for round 1, according to the fans. Nick Dacos in second, so we're doing the 10-1 system again. The most votes will get 10, and then 9, 8, 7 all the way to 1. So Scotty Pendlebury was the 3rd best player on the ground, according to our fans. So spot on with you, Marcus. 10,
Ding,
9,
ding.
8. Lovely to see. Bobby Hill, 7 votes. Tom Mitchell, 6. Josh Dacos, 5. John Noble, 4. Darcy Moore, 3. Bo McCreary, 2. And Jack Crisp rounded out the votes with 1. An interesting game from Crispy, I think. Spent a lot of time on Patrick Dangerfield throughout the match, and I think they ended up with a similar disposal count, but the impact of both players vastly different.
Absolutely. And he came into the game in a more attacking sense in the last quarter in particular. There was a goal where him and Nick Dacos were involved. I can't remember who kicked it, but maybe it was the link up for De Goey's last goal. But yeah, he was just there when he needed to be and was happy to sacrifice his match. So looking forward to big things for Crispy this year as well.
We'll take a quick break. Lots of fun segments for you on the other side, including Ask Pies Nation and our first guest, the Crowd competition winner, on the line right after this. This halftime break is brought to you by Liquorland. Footy is back and Liquorland have all your drink needs for when the siren calls. And once again, Liquorland on board this Thursday to Sunday to kick off the season. Once again, Liquorland, $2 express delivery when you shop online at liquorland.com.au. They just continue to deliver.
Well, they are very good, Liquorland. I don't know about you, Nico, but I'm extremely busy with work, uni, and now the footy's back, so there's not much time to get into the shops physically. So $2 express to your door, that sounds great to me.
Express delivery is available in Victoria, New South Wales and Queensland, not available in all postcodes. View full T's and C's and the latest drink specials at liquorland.com.au. Liquorland, from the land you love. Please drink responsibly. Welcome back to the Pies Nation podcast, where the pies are hot and the drinks are cold. Let's get straight to Ask Pies Nation. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, you name it, we're on there. Ask Pies Nation time. Lukey's put up another quality question that got heaps of responses. Has this win, boys, set up our season for 2023? A big statement already to make after one game, but Lukey was onto it, and we got plenty of good and interesting responses. So Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, that's where you get involved. Keep an eye out for it post game day. Let's head straight to Twitter, and we'll start with Jimmy, who says, definitely looking good. It's very early, but I think we still have improvement in us as well. McStay will be better as my check and him work out how they best play together. Exciting times ahead this year, but it's a long season. All the best to Howie as well. So there's a few that have that sentiment, just about the fact that, we just got to take things nice and easy. It's been one game, so we'll see how we go.
That was exactly the feeling I had leaving the ground, Nico. It was such a monumental win, unbelievable as we've touched on, but I still felt there's a lot of improvement left in this side, which gets me more excited, actually, to be perfectly frank. So long season ahead, hopefully with a lot more improvement to go, and look out the rest of the competition if we can improve on that.
Tom Kohler, 24. Looks like we've still got that fire in us from last season, and we were able to run them out in the last quarter. The new lads look like great additions, even those that didn't have a standout performance themselves. Got new depth that makes me keen to see who stars this season. That's a very good point there from Tommy.
Love that from Tommy. Every one of our new recruits felt like they made sense in our team in terms of the role that they played. So extremely nice as a fan to see additions come in that play a true role.
We've got Louis on Twitter back at it again. A fantastic win against the Premiership team. It is a small sample, and I'll need to see more to confirm our status for 2023. Our constant run and endurance is great. Look out, here come the Pies. So, yes, while there's some that are just taking a step back, there's others that are just ready to dig into what 2023 has in store. We've got Adzi23 on Twitter. The win confirms our game plan and level of fitness can match it with the best. It's a long season and we don't want to play our best footy in the first month, but a great start. Nonetheless, we now have great depth, so there is no reliance on one person who has to play well each week. And I think we all agree with those sentiments there. From Adzi, Jessica Lansdowne on Twitter. Lots to like. Really impressed with the running in the last quarter when the Cats looked spent. Room for improvement with goal kicking and need things to sink in the forward line with McStay, but that will come. Really excited to see where we can go this season. The goal kicking was a fascinating area of the game because at one point Geelong was 16 goals won and it just felt like that it was just one of those nights for them. And they were just going to kick straight every single time, but fortunately we were able to run away with it in the end.
Absolutely. That was actually some Globetrotters stuff to watch as a spectator, and it wasn't that we weren't kicking accurately either. We missed a few sodas in the first half, Jack, but were you pulling your hair out at the ground like they've done it again?
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. There was a brief moment where I felt we could be kicking straighter, and I looked up to the scoreboard and I think I might have saw 9-7, but then when I also saw 11-0, I was like, well, it doesn't matter how straight you kick today, you're not going to be kicking straighter than that. So it was, kudos to Geelong, but oh well, got the chocolates in the end.
Nathan Sorrenti on Twitter, our improvement around the contest was massive. Definitely our most glaring deficiency last year, so that was great to see. Obviously, we ran over the top of a side that had some key outs, so we should keep a lid on it, ... for now.
I'm glad this point has been raised. as good as this win was, let's just come back to reality for just 30 seconds.
Yep, go on.
De Koning on one leg for most of the game. Tom Hawkins comes in underdone. No idea why he plays, to be honest, in round one as the reigning premier, because he just didn't look fit
No
at all.
idea.
Had some influence, but didn't look fit. And then Stengel had a little bit of a niggle, but did come back on. And Tom Stewart, of course, with the knee injury. If maybe one of those happens and it's not Tom Stewart, do we win?
It's a different game. I still back our fitness in our last quarter to do so. And the reason why I say that is because it's not like we just fell in this time. Obviously, all these things happened and all the ducks lined up in a row for us, so to speak. But we ran away in that last quarter. Other Collingwood sides in previous years, the same thing has happened, and they've sort of fallen in by a goal or two. And and then the other side can clearly say, well, if we didn't have the injuries, then we wouldn't have lost. But this time, the injuries happened, and we saw blood in the water, and we took it. We just took the game away from them and ran away with it. So, yeah, it's sort of if, buts, maybes. But
And look, seriously, this is where belief comes into a league of its own. These guys are so well conditioned to stay cool and stick to the game plan, keep taking risks when the game is on the line, and we saw it come through with flying colours. So I think we still win, whether it's by 3 or 4 goals, though. I'm not too sure, Nico.
Like I told you on Friday night, Marcus, a win is a win. Doesn't matter who we're up against. We can only do what we can.
That's
so
it.
Got the 4 points. A question here from mblack42 on Instagram. How do you think the ruck combination works between Cox and Cameron? And do you see it varying depending on the opponent? Now, Coxie was able to get on the scoreboard as well. Cameron doing majority of the ruck work, particularly around the ground. What's the best answer here for mblack42's question?
Well, it's something that we've posed as recently as last week, I think, guys, in terms of do we stick with this combo game to game? I didn't think we looked too tall. I thought the way our ruckman got around the ground allowed us to actually add to our game. And Coxie was moving as well as I've ever seen him, going up for double-handed marks and doing all sorts of things. And that goal that he kicked, I mean, we haven't spoken about it because there was
Which
so
one?
many.
There was the two really impressive ones, really.
Well, from the boundary, it's just what on earth? There was something in the air. So I think that we stick with the combination. And Darcy Cameron, what a first choice ruckman. We got him for what, like 4th round pick or something?
About
I
pick
reckon.
80.
Pick 80, yeah,
roughly.
yeah. And he's got an incredible career ahead of him. So how did you see the combination play out?
yeah,
Jack?
echo those sentiments and more, Marcus. Just like our new recruits, it just worked. The combination just worked, and that's all you can really say about it. I thought Mason was huge as well as Darcy around the ground. What was really important to me, I actually said to my partner, need a really huge grab from Mason here when the game was still on the line down, and we need to just go that long kick down the line. Give us another 30 to 25 seconds of just set up time, and sure enough, down the line there he was taking a big clunk. So I thought, without setting the absolute world on fire, I thought they both played their roles to perfection.
Gav Comtesi on Instagram. It has put the league on notice that what were perceived weaknesses in our game have been addressed, and now they have other problems to solve. We will again make teams play the minutes, and no lead is safe. First time in a long time, we are strong in all thirds of the ground. Our running power is terrifying. So there's a big positive sentiments there from Gav Comtesi, which is great to see. A couple more to round out our AskPiesNation. Hill_Luca. The clearance work from Tom Mitchell benefited us so much. It was such a weakness from us last year, but now that we have an experienced, skilled midfielder in the mix, we're allowed to have more run. And we sort of spoke about that in the first segment with Mitch.
Changes the entire shape of our game plan because we're winning it more from the source. It just does absolute wonders when you get first hands on it. So I think of all of the inclusions that we had, the new recruits, Tom Mitchell is the epicenter of that.
Dylan_Ing. I think it's time we don't underestimate ourselves for once. We are looking just like 2018. As one of the boys said last podcast, I think it was you, Marcus, unpredictable goal scorers could finish with 8 or more scorers with 20 plus goals at the end of our season, plus our work rate, which is phenomenal to pressure teams. So again,
Early signs are good for the spread.
Absolutely.
Yeah. New sweep squad might be in town. Jack
Tell you
Ginnivan,
what.
Bobby Hill,
Well,
Ash Johnson.
like we said, 10 individual goal scorers for 19 goals. You keep that rate up all year, then you're absolutely going to have a lot of players with that 20-plus goal area, which is great to see. Last one here. I think this is your mate Jack Chops Rutherford.
Yes, it is.
Chops.
Simple one here. Where is the party after we win the flag?
Yes.
Where are we going, Jack?
Lid is staying firmly on this week. If there's a yin and yang of Collingwood supporters, it is myself and Liam, or AKA Chops. He is the one that will celebrate a flag after round one, and I'm the one keeping the lid firmly tight. But for anyone, I think, anywhere in Richmond would be good, wouldn't it, Nico?
Yeah, absolutely. It would. Looking forward to that match already in a fortnight's time. That's all for AskPiesNation. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube is where you can find all our social media platforms.
TikTok.
Make sure you get involved. Got to chat to Lukey about that because he actually made an account on TikTok last year. Hasn't been
taken
used
off
yet. I don't think we put anything on there this year. So hopefully, if there's a bit of traction, maybe from our PiesNation fanhood, maybe we will.
Well,
be able
I
to
don't
get
know
on
these
TikTok.
things,
I was
Nico,
gonna
but
say,
apparently the TikTok
very
is
surprised
where
you're the
want
one
to
bringing
be.
up TikTok out of the three of us, that's for sure. But maybe we will just pop our heads up there. We're everywhere else. We might as well be on TikTok too. Before we get to the Guess the Crowd competition winner, shout outs to our margin tippers for the week. There's a few around on Instagram and Twitter. We got Chris Everett on Twitter, Thorlin on Instagram, Troy Rogers, Twitter, MPJ Pie, Twitter, Gary West, Twitter, Platty on Twitter, Dr. Bloody Mongrel, Twitter, Sean Campbell, Twitter, John Did It, Twitter, and they were the ones that all guessed 22 points for the Pies. A pretty impressive effort.
Some really impressive names in there as well.
Oh,
Nico.
yeah.
That was grouse.
Twitter handles these days, you just get
I'm
so creative.
impressed with that from you, Nick. That was very well done. You didn't falter.
Did all run really well? Well, that's a first, that's for sure. Anyway, let's get the headphones on because it's time for our Guess the Crowd competition winner. All right, let's get to our Guess the Crowd competition winner now. We must say, and it does happen sometimes when we do this competition, that the first winner isn't available, but we should give a shout out, particularly to our user on Instagram here, Tharani. I think that's one word. I think we'll go with that for now. 86,593 was his guess. 2 people away from the actual figure of 86,595. An outstanding effort. So congratulations to you not being on our episode tonight because you weren't available. So we'll go to our next caller who was only 5 off, which is a bloody impressive effort to be 5 people off the crowd. Do you remember how many people you were off when you won it last year?
A lot more than 5. I think mine was a bit more of a Stephen Bradbury set up, Nico. Everyone else fell down and I just came through at the end. But no, that's 5 people off. That's still very, very impressive.
So for those that haven't heard this segment before, we will call this person while we're recording. There's no edits here. It's all as you hear it. We'll speak for 5 or so minutes about this person's love for the Pies and their thoughts for the season ahead, plus a couple of other quirky little questions as well. So our first one for 2023 is Daz, and let's hope that Daz answers the call.
Come on, Daz.
Go Pies.
Oh, he already knows we're on. Welcome to the PiesNation podcast, Daz. Thank you so much for giving us some of your time. That's the best introduction I think we've had. There's no hello, this is whoever speaking. He's straight away off to the Go Pies. Daz, welcome, mate. Congratulations for being 5 people off the Guess the Crowd winner.
Oh, how about that? And I was second place.
You were second place, so we don't worry
I'll
about the other
take it.
guy. No, we don't worry about the other guy. This is all about you for the next 5 minutes, Daz. Well done, mate. We got to ask you, Friday night, were you there and how did you make of the Collingwood's blistering round 1 performance?
Oh, mate. I wasn't there. I live in Darwin, so I had to watch it on my iPad at home.
Right.
And, mate, I was not sure what we're going to dish up this season. But with all these additions, these new recruits, mate, unbelievable. We stitched them right up.
Thanks, Daz. Good to have you on, mate. Well, you live in Darwin, mate, you just touched on. How many games do you get to throughout the season? Or how did you become a Collingwood supporter?
Well, I don't get to any games, mate, anymore. But I did grow up in Melbourne, so I'm from Hastings originally. So I think my dad got me into the Pies, but for as long as I can remember, mate, I've been a Pies supporter. And it's just in the blood, mate. So, yeah.
Very nice. Shout out Hastings. Good neck of the woods down near my way, Marcus.
G'day, Daz. Marcus here. Thank you for joining us. So does
Hey, mate.
anyone get around you on the iPad or is it just your lonesome self watching the Pies these days?
Oh, mate. Look, I've got a almost 3-year-old son. So sometimes I have to watch it even on delay, which is a bit of a worry. I've got to turn the phone off so I don't get any spoilers. And but otherwise, other than that, mate, no, I'm just watching it at home by myself, so I can take it all in, see every play, every handball, and text a few mates at the same time, and that's how I kind of keep in touch, which makes it a bit more fun.
And with us now as well, which is absolutely wonderful. Now I'm loving that you're in Darwin and we're able to do this with you from Melbourne. Looking at the season and where you see us situating at the end of the season proper, are we a top 8? Are we a top 4? Where do you see us landing?
Oh, mate, there's so much speculation, isn't there? But geez, that performance on Friday night, mate, I'll put us down for a 1-point victory over the Blues in the GF, mate.
Oh no!
That's what I'm saying.
Don't do that to us. Oh, that
mate, how good would that be?
It would.
That's the ultimate.
I'm going home in an ambulance if that happens.
That
I
would
probably
be-
won't
yeah.
make it to the end.
to the after party. That's for sure. Look, that would be. We thought last year was heaven. The fact that round 23 we beat it by a point to knock them out of finals. That would be. I don't think life would exist if we were able to get a scenario like that. So,
Oh,
Daz, if that
mate,
happens, I'll be
that's
going
my
straight
dream.
to you in Darwin. That's for sure.
Just give me another call, mate, when that happens, all right?
I know you'll look after us, don't you worry. Now, I don't know if you've heard these segments before, Daz, but sometimes we ask these callers that come on about a quirky Collingwood memory that you have, not your big standout moments like a grand final victory or a finals victory. What is one personal Collingwood memory that will always stick out to you in your time supporting the Pies?
All right, so I'm going to go with, well, I mean, the obvious one is buddy Jamie Elliott, your legend.
Yep.
But no, 2020, this is the one that I come up with. 2020, round at my mate's house. It wasn't on the iPad. I was watching the first final against the Eagles with my mate Joel, and Checkers kicked that amazing kick to knock them off by a point, mate. Just a bit of retribution for 2018.
That was an unreal game, that one. In lockdown
Yeah.
as well. Nobody expected us to win. They caught us dirty and we were able to...
Yeah, we knocked them out. Knocked them out of the finals. We weren't even meant to be in there, but yeah, we knocked them out. So that was awesome.
That's absolutely great to hear. Daz, thank you so much for giving us some of your time and tuning into the PiesNation podcast. Hopefully you'll be able to guess a few more right and we'll be able to speak to you soon.
All right, thanks a lot, guys. Keep up the good work. Love the pod.
Thanks, Daz. Take it easy.
Daz. Take care.
See you guys.
And there's Daz, first one for the year. How great's that, boys?
Wonderful to have this segment back, and I felt like he could probably join us on the podcast if he wasn't based in Darwin.
bad.
He was starting off with the Go Pies, and gee whiz, he was amazing.
Absolutely. One to look out for the rest of you who plan to be on the PNP fan call for season 2023. Going to be hard to top Daz, who's just come out firing round 1.
Well, that's the standard we're setting here with the guest of crowd. So make sure each game day you tune in to all our social media pages at PiesNation. Lukey will put up the guest the crowd competition post. As long as you are the closest one by the end of the match, that will be you joining us each week on the podcast. Before we wrap up, of course, we've got, remember, Thursday Instagram Live of our selection. As it happens, a great success, I think, against the Cats.
Had 50 viewers, Nick.
50 viewers, that's it. That's what we love. By the time we actually started talking and they realised what we were talking about,
We
they were like,
had about
"Oops."
100 and we were dicking about there, Jacko, so we we're in the nervous 90s and then we reduced ourselves. We can only build from there, Nick.
But lots of great comments as well and some great interactions. So fantastic.
what it's all
to
about.
see nonetheless. VFL kicks off this week, Marcus. So I hope you got your notes ready for this time next week.
Don't.
No, I didn't think
I'm
you
glad
did.
you said that. I was actually looking at the rundown here, and I said to myself, "There's no VFL report here, so I'm in the hot water if they've actually played." But
Well, they did have a practice match.
got the
That's for
Surge, the resident Surge.
Surge will be.
Yeah, he'll be back. He'll be back.
Surge will be absolutely ready to go. You don't have to worry about Surge. He's right up there with the VFL report.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. But no, we did have a practice match against the Cats, which I believe we did get up in. Ash Johnson, 4 goals was the standout in that one. So still looking to try and find his way into that starting 6 in the forward line. It's going to be a tough one, I think, for him. But we'll see if he can continue to develop in the early stages of the VFL. I'm sure that will help his game out. 2, we play Coburg round 1 in the VFL. So keep an eye out for that game. I don't have the details off the top of my head, Maybe Marcus can do it now on the laptop while he's trying to search that. Of course, round 1 of the VFL kicks off, VFLW as well. So both competitions starting at the same time this year, which is fantastic to see. Both competitions getting involved, and we'll be looking forward to hopefully the Pies getting themselves in that final spot. So exciting to see where that comes about, Marcus.
Looks like we 11:05 a.m. Saturday, 25th March, 2023, and so
Great start.
we'll be reporting on the VFL once again this year, Nico. So
Of course we will.
look out.
It's one of our favourite segments of VFL Report.
At Vic Park as well, sorry.
Oh, perfect. Vic Park. Can't get better than that. Now, before we wrap up as well, I just wanted to bring up this concussion talk that's been stirring around the AFL in the last week. It's become apparent that there's been some lawsuits taking place by some ex-players. Liam Pickens one, Max Rook, and more recently Gary Ablett Sr. as well, just talking about the effects that concussion has had on their everyday lives. And I guess what they're trying to look for from the AFL, apart from insurance money, is a bit of an explanation as to what information they knew at the time. Obviously, things have changed, so there's no expectation that they should have known then what they do now, but the information that was at hand back in the day, were they able to implement that to the best case scenario, or to the way they were able to do it the most, so that players had limited effects of concussions. Now, we've seen a couple of bumps already on the weekend. Keziah Pickett was one, of course. Shane McAdam was another.
Buddy
now, of course. All of them getting suspended too. Bucks made an interesting point on radio last week on SEN, talking about Nathan Murphy as an example. Now, we know he's someone that is very courageous in his football. It's the only way he knows how to play. He goes back with the flight of the footy and does cause himself potential harm more often than not when he plays in those positions, whether he's leaving his man, he's going as the third man up, as we saw on Friday night. And I guess his question was more the fact that, so do you tell someone like Nathan Murphy not to play that way? Is it more about, can you not pick him because of the risk of injury? Or do you put him out for an extended period of time instead of the 2-week concussion period that is currently in place at the AFL? Is it a month? Is it 6 weeks? Does it impact his development, the way he goes about his own football? And it's not just him. There's lots of players around the league that play with a similar style that only know that one way, and that's to, go through and just ball at all cost. It doesn't matter. So I bring the question to you boys. Do these concussion talks, are they going to have a major influence in the way we see the game over the next, 5 or so years?
Well, there's going to be more and more players coming forward as the number of current players grows, I can only assume. So it's something that, as an injury in sport, isn't fully understood and appreciated. And each concussion, I'm no expert, but it does bring nuance in terms of how the player should be managed. So having a protocol for assessment, and then also a policy amongst the entire code, is super important. But what that means for one player in terms of how that injury, how that concussion took place, may be different to another. And I'm sure that the high performance staff and the team club doctors and anyone else involved is doing whatever's in the players' best interests. But there always comes that question to the coaches want the players on the park. So if they are seemingly fit and you don't have any contraindications or reason not to select them, then it's time to come back in. But whether or not that's the best thing to do at the time, and could that predispose them to a further head knock, a la Paddy McCartan, is seriously contentious. And I think we're just going to see more and more of this pop up. So keen to keep an eye on this. Nico, Jacko, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's such a labyrinth of an issue, isn't it? It's so complicated and it can go in so many different directions. I think as we progress as a society with more medical expertise, more tools to have a look in concussion, it's going to change year on, year out. And I don't think it's just going to change our game. I think it's going to change a lot of contact sports right around the world. And it has over only a period of probably about 5 or 10 years. It's changed dramatically. So having that protocol in place is absolutely paramount. But to speak more to Marcus's point, I don't think you can paint every single player with one brush. So it's going to be a very, very complicated issue. It won't be as black and white as every single player needs this amount of time off before they can come back on, or they need this amount of weeks away from the game before they can start doing contact stuff. So it's very much a case-by-case thing. As for the legality issues with the how would you say, the suit that's been taken up by their ex-players. I think that's probably something that's only a matter of time, as you mentioned off air a bit, Nico, before, about because there wasn't any sort of protocol before, or they didn't have anything up to measure it up against. It was probably only a matter of time before that did come out, and they say, well, why didn't we have that back when we did? So that's one that I probably won't. I will watch with interest, but no expertise on for sure. But yeah, you got to be careful with these things because it's not a one size fits all.
Not at all. So great points made by both of you there. I think you could both pass as medical experts the way you guys have been chatting about this issue. So
Well, I'm a doctor, Nick.
Well, one of us is.
spot on there, Marcus.
Not
All
a real
right.
one, though.
That doesn't matter about the little issues, the details. All right, that's all we got time for on this week's episode of the Pies Nation podcast. Tune in, Instagram Live, Thursday as selection drops. Be fascinating to see what changes are made, if any, really, by Craig McRae and his men. Of course, Jeremy Howe will be one, but whether there's any more remains to be seen. So be sure you get involved on Instagram. Thursday, 6:15 is when we'll go live. Hopefully that means we'll be seeing the Mighty Pies have a strong squad as they take on the Port Adelaide Power, who are looking pretty
It
decent
should
themselves.
not be underestimated, Nico.
Absolutely not. So we'll talk about what they will bring to the table as well.
No doubt
Okay,
about it. And looking forward to getting to those tips and guess the crowds as well in the live
Yes.
video, getting those immediate reactions based on the weather and other factors that we know affect these things.
Won't have to rely on me to give you the temperature each week now. Like, there's someone that will be in the comments, I'm sure, that will
Yeah.
already let us know.
We'll get a weatherman happening or
A
something.
resident weatherman on Instagram Live. Imagine that. That'd be pretty handy. But anyway, until then, Marcus and Jack, thank you as always for celebrating our round one win with me.
Thank you,
Thank
Nico.
you, Nico.
Thank you, Reef McInnes. And
Yeah, and
Shout out
Bo,
Bo McCreary.
all of them. Shout out to all of them. I've been your host, Nicholas Sacco. You've been listening or watching to the Pies Nation podcast, where the pies are hot and the drinks are cold. Thanks for listening to the Pies Nation podcast, and thanks to Liquorland, who are proud partners of the show. Liquorland, proud partners of the Pies Nation podcast for another season of footy. Footy's back, and Liquorland have all your drink needs for when the siren calls. Liquorland, from the land you love. Please drink responsibly.